Abdul, make sure no one's here. They shouldn't be here. Assalamu alaikum, brother Jamal. Assalamu alaikum, brother Musa. كيف الصحة؟ ما شاء الله. I'm just waiting for the recording to come on, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina wa Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'ahum بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم إنا نسألك رضاك والجنتك ونعوذ بك من سخطك والنار. اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم يا رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. This is our third study of the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as the Prophet ﷺ has taught us that the Sahaba are like stars, and the stars give you guidance when you're lost. So the Prophet ﷺ has told us to follow these Sahaba and study their lives in order to give us a method, a way of following, because every one of us has a different temperament. And every one of us has a different mizaj. And because we have a different temperament, some of us feel a better acquaintance and a better familiarity with different Sahaba. So when you study the lives of the Sahaba, you find, and sometimes you find yourself very leaning towards or liking a certain habit of one Sahaba, a certain habit of another Sahaba. So when we look at the Sahaba in general, you can see such beautiful qualities which give us a means to follow an interpretation of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The first week we studied Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala an and his illustrious, beautiful life. Last week we had the privilege of studying about Umar Farooq, Umar ibn Khattab, whose life was amazing. As we went through the life of Umar ibn Khattab, many of us were in tears just thinking and looking at what he went through. This week, inshallah ta'ala, we'll be discussing the life of Uthman bin Affan radiyallahu ta'ala an. And Uthman bin Affan was an amazing Khalifa of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and had amazing characteristics which we can benefit from in the study of his life. So inshallah we'll go through some of his life inshallah ta'ala. Uthman bin Affan radiyallahu ta'ala an, he was born 6 years after the incident of Fil. He was born 6 years after the incident of Fil. Hence he was about 6 years younger than the Blessed Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala an, he grew up in the city of Ta'if. And we all know Ta'if, we spoke about it in Jum'ah today. Ta'if is a city very close to Mecca. But Ta'if, its environment is a little different. Ta'if was always, until today, is known for its beauty, its gardens, its vegetation. Beautiful city. And the Prophet ﷺ has taught us that the environment you live in plays a very big effect on your own self. You see city people, you see country people. The environment has a different effect. Uthman bin Affan was from Ta'if. That's where he grew up from. That's where he was from. Not only was he from Ta'if, but he was from a very wealthy family. And they were known for their tijara. They were very good in tijara, in business. And his father, Affan, had gathered a lot of money. And when Affan, Uthman's father, had passed away, he left a lot of money with Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an. So there's two things. Uthman was a very skilled businessman. He was an excellent tajir. Excellent tajir. And on top of that, he inherited a lot of money. So in the beginning, he would do a lot of traveling. Uthman radiallahu anh, he would do a lot of traveling here and there for his business. But as he accepted Islam and he migrated to Medina, which we'll talk about later, Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, he gives up traveling for business, and he just does what is called mubarad, where he puts the money down and someone else does business, and they split the proceeds. This was his main method of business after the Prophet ﷺ had migrated to Medina al-Munawwara. So his father had left him a large portion of money, and this money is going to be one of the important aspects of Uthman's life that we're going to look at. It's very important, inshallah. Now, Uthman ibn Affan, besides this money, he was known for his character amongst the Quraysh. He was considered the ashraf of the prestigious people of Quraysh, and everyone looked up to him. A very good incident is in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, when the Muslims were stopped from coming into Makkah. So the Prophet ﷺ said to Umar bin Khattab, Umar, you go and talk to them. Umar, you go and talk to them. So Umar said, no. You know me. They're not going to let me go there. There's going to be problems if I go. No. Send Uthman. So the Prophet ﷺ he liked the idea. He said, no, yes, we'll send Uthman. And Uthman was someone everyone liked. When Uthman arrived into the city, the first thing they said, Uthman, come in, go do tawaf, do your umrah. Uthman was said, without the Prophet? You want me to do my tawaf? Now, what you have to understand is the love that they had for Kaaba. They had been away from the Kaaba for many years now. And they were saying, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik. Those words are powerful. We know how those feel, to hear those. And he's brought in front of the Kaaba. And they said, start your tawaf, man, you're here. But at that point, the natural love he has for Kaaba is done. No, I'm not doing tawaf. I'm not doing tawaf till my Prophet is doing tawaf with me. So Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala an, he had a special position amongst the Quraysh, and he was very known amongst the Quraysh for his money, for his business, for his character in general. He was very known. Uthman is a different Sahabi. We read about Umar bin Khattab. What did Umar say about his days of Jahiliyyah? Umar bin Khattab says, I did everything in Jahiliyyah. I was just out there. Uthman bin Affan was a completely opposite. Uthman says, I never committed zina in Jahiliyyah or in Islam. I never touched khamr in Jahiliyyah or Islam. He went through a whole list of things that were his characteristics from before. And we're going to look in more detail at some of the attributes of Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala an. After Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala an, who accepted Islam, we talked about when he accepted Islam, he became one of the main du'at to Islam. When Abu Bakr accepted Islam, there were many people. So Uthman bin Affan, he says, وَكَانَ لِي مَجْلَسٍ عِنْدَ أَبِي بَكْرٍ. He says, me and Abu Bakr used to chill together. وَكَانَ لَنَا مَجْلِسٍ. We used to sit together. Meaning him and Abu Bakr were old-time boys. So they used to, وَكَانَ لَنَا مَجْلِسٍ, he says. فَأَتَيْتُهُ. This narration says that I went to him and I was sitting with him, but I was just in thought. Because in his previous trip that he had taken somewhere, something very interesting happened, which he heard a voice in the middle of sleep and wakefulness. He heard a voice speaking about a man named Ahmed has come. Ahmed has come. He heard this voice. So this thing was bothering him. Ahmed, what did I hear? And then there was also an aunt of his who had been saying some poetry about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Uthman is like on edge now. He's not really settled in himself. So Uthman is sitting with Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala an, and we all know friends. When you're sitting with someone who's your friend and you know, right away you can tell when things aren't the same anymore. You're thinking about something. So he says, فَأَتَيْتُهُ فَأَصَبْتُهُ فِي مَجْلِسٍ الَّذِي لَيْسَ عِنْدَهُ أَحَدٌ. It was just me and him. No one was with us. فَجَلَسْتُ إِلَيْهِ فَرَآنِي مُفَكِّرًا. He saw me sitting there thinking. فَسَأَلِنِي عَنْ أَمْرِي. He said, what's up? What's going on? فَأَخْبَرْتُهُ بِمَا سَمِعْتُ مِنْ خَالَتِي. He says, I told him about what my aunt said. Now Abu Bakr had already accepted Islam. Abu Bakr had already accepted Islam. But slowly Abu Bakr in his andaz, his way was very wise. He didn't just go up to everyone. He selected individuals to give da'wah to. He'd see something in someone and he'd give da'wah to him. So Uthman now he says, فَقَالَ وَيْحَكْ يَا Uthman. He said, wake up Uthman. Wayhak means, what's wrong with you? Meaning, see, this is the thing, when we have a close relationship with someone, sometimes it just takes a nudge to push that person on haqq. Many times we don't have a relationship with someone and we want to give them da'wah. No. Abu Bakr radiallahu, he says, Wayhak ya Uthman, innaka rajulun hadimun. He says, yeah, Uthman, you're a wise man, you're a smart man. ما يخفى عليك الحق من الباطل. You can differentiate truth from batil. ما هذه الأوثان التي يعبدونها قومنا. What are these idols that our people are worshipping? There he brings it right there. He gives them da'wah. ألست من حجارة? Aren't they أليست من حجارة? Aren't they just rocks? صم لا تسمع لا تبصر. They don't see, they don't hear anything. So he's giving him da'wah bala. And Uthman says, you're right. You're right. إنها لكذلك. You're right. So then he says, one narration says, in that gathering, he talks to him until Islam enters into the heart of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala. And then another narration, they're both, we can do tatbiq between them. Another narration says that after that, Abu Bakr grabbed Uthman and he took him to the Prophet ﷺ, Darul Arqam, the same place that Umar went to when it was time to accept Islam, Darul Arqam. He takes him there and he says that Abu Bakr whispered into the ear of the Prophet ﷺ something. And then the Rasul ﷺ himself gave da'wah to Uthman, and Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu accepted Islam. When Uthman accepted Islam, it wasn't easy. Uthman was a different man. We read last week about Umar bin Khattab. Umar bin Khattab, in spite of his harshness, his strength, his build, in spite of all of that, the moment he had announced his Islam, what happened? He was attacked left and right. Uthman was a completely different individual. He wasn't as forceful. He was more timid, shy. Uthman was a medium stature, brown complexion, Adam, what they say, a tint of red. And they said he had a few spots on his face, like as if he had smallpox. And then they say he was bald also. But he had very broad shoulders, very, very broad shoulders, and a very thick beard, a wide and thick beard. But he was very handsome, extremely handsome. And he was known for that. All of these features were part of him. So Uthman, when he accepted Islam, immediately his family grabbed him and they began to torture him. They began to torture him in different ways. His uncle once tied him up. I'm not letting you go until you give up this deen. His uncle, Al-Hakam bin Abi As, Ibn Umayyah, he says, أَوْثَقَهُ رِبَاطًا. He tied him up. He tied him up. وَقَالَ أَتَرْغَبُ عَنْ مِلَّةِ آبَائِكَ إِلَى دِينِ مُحْدَثٍ. Do you give up your old way, your family's religion, for this new religion? وَاللَّهِ لَا أَحُلُّكَ أَبَدًا. He said, I'll never untie these ropes until you give up your religion. And the narration says, when he realized, Uthman said, you can do whatever you want. I'll never give up this deen. And the moment he heard those words, he untied him. Go ahead. One of his other uncles did something even worse. His other uncle did something even more worse, tied him up, and they had kind of like mats which they would sit on. So he tied him up and he put the mat around him. And then he burned something below him so the smoke would rise up through the mat that he was tied up in. So he's suffocating him. And this is what Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu was going. And he was one of the people who was honored and respected. But when he accepted Islam, he went through such hardships. Rasulullah ﷺ had a special place in his heart for Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu. A very special place. When the verse of Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa Tab was revealed. Speaking about who? Abu Lahab. Abu Lahab's son, Utbah, he was married to the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ruqayyah. He was married to her. Subhanallah, sometimes we don't realize. Abu Lahab, what was he doing? How was he stopping the message of Islam? How verses were revealed about him. And his son was married to the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sometimes we don't realize these relations between them. So when this verse was revealed, Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa Tab, Abu Lahab said, Ra'si wa ra'suka fariq. He said, my head and your head are never to see each other again if you don't give up this woman. If you don't divorce this woman, you are not my son anymore. So Utbah, he divorces Ruqayyah, the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thereafter, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam marries Ruqayyah to Uthman bin Affan radiyallahu ta'ala an. Uthman was the son-in-law of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But not only one time was he the son-in-law. Some time later, and we'll talk in more detail, Ruqayyah passes away. Ruqayyah passes away. And Utbah had a brother, his name was Utaybah. Utaybah was married to Kulthum. And who was Kulthum? Also the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Ruqayyah passed away, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam married Uthman to Kulthum too. From this point on, Uthman got a special nickname. His name was Dhun Nurain, the one of two lights. Meaning he had two nurs in his life. He had Ruqayyah, the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when she passed away, he married Kulthum, the other daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we'll go into more detail, inshallah ta'ala. Uthman bin Affan had a different character. When we spoke about Umar bin Khattab, we heard that when the persecution started, Umar bin Khattab was the one that said, no, we're praying openly. We're here to stay. Alasna ala al-haq. That was his famous statement. And he's the one who gave the Muslims the courage to pray openly and to be open about their Islam. But what happened after Uthman accepted Islam? Uthman accepted Islam before Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala an. So Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala an, Uthman radiyallahu an, when the persecution began to become too hard, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave permission to all the Sahaba, everyone. It's too difficult now. You can all migrate to Abyssinia. There's a righteous king, Najashi. There's a righteous man there, a Christian man, but he's righteous. He's on haqq. Go to him. So 12 Sahaba and 4 Sahabiyat migrated to Abyssinia. And Uthman was migrating with who? Ruqayyah radiyallahu ta'ala an. One time a person, they came into the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, and a sister, she says, Ya Rasulullah, I just saw your son-in-law leaving Mecca. So Rasul ﷺ says, how was he? What was he doing? He said he was holding the straps of the camel, and your daughter was sitting on the camel, and they were leaving the city. So at that point he made dua for him. He said, Allah bless Uthman. He's the first one to do hijrah with his family after Lut. He's the first one to do hijrah after Lut alayhi salatu wassalam. We know Lut did hijrah with his family. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, may Allah have mercy upon Uthman. He's the very first one to do hijrah with his family after Lut alayhi salatu wassalam. So here Uthman leaving his city, leaving. And he didn't come back. Rumors had spread that after some time they were in, for a few years, they were in Habasha. And rumors had spread that after Umar bin Khattab accepted Islam, rumors had spread that, Islam had spread. In Islam, everyone is Muslim in Makkah. So many of the Sahaba that were in Abyssinia, they heard these rumors and they came running back. The moment they arrived at the shore of the Arabian Peninsula, They asked around, hey, we heard everyone became Muslim. You heard wrong. Well, we came this far already. So some of them went back to Abyssinia. No, we're not going to go back into Mecca. It's too harsh there. Some of them, they took protection from their relatives and they came. Uthman was one of those who came back to Mecca, and he stays there until time to go back and make the second migration. So Uthman has another. So first thing, he is Dhun Nurayn, the one who married 2 daughters of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'll tell you something, when Kulthum passed away, because she passed away also. When Kulthum passed away, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in praise of Uthman, he says something beautiful. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Ala aban ayyam, ala akha ayyam, yuzawwijuha Uthman, falau kunna ashran lazawwajtuhunna Uthmana." He says words of mourning. Words of mourning. And then he says, Wallahi, if I had 10 daughters, I'd give them all to Uthman. Who's saying this? The king of some country? Who's saying this? The president of some club, some group? No, Sayyidul Kawnayn, our blessed Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Mustafa, chosen. Mustafa, chosen by Allah. And who did he choose to marry 2 of his daughters? Uthman bin Affan radiyallahu ta'ala an. And when Kulthum passed away, he said, if I had 10 more daughters, I'd marry them all to Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala an. This was the stature of Uthman. This was the stature of Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala an. They migrated. And Uthman, we know that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam made a brotherhood. The Rasul ﷺ made a brotherhood amongst the Ansar and the Muhajirin. So Hassan bin Thabit's brother, Hassan bin Thabit had a older brother. He and Uthman were put together. They were brothers of each other. They were brothers of each other when they came to Medina. Not long after the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina, the Battle of Badr occurred. The Battle of Badr occurred, and all of the Sahaba who were there, whoever could in this expedition, they went out for this battle. And we know the Battle of Badr was Yawm al-Furqan. That was a big day. That was a big day. Uthman wanted to go, but Uthman couldn't go because at that time Ruqayyah, the first daughter of Rasulullah ﷺ, had gotten very sick. And Uthman radiallahu ta'ala is in Medina. And the announcer comes to Medina to announce that we've won. And the day that the person came with the news of the victory, this was the same moment, the same day that Ruqayyah had passed away. And Uthman bin Affan, he's the one who went down into the ground, putting Ruqayyah into the dirt, burying the daughter of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Uthman bin Affan had a few very beautiful qualities that I would like to talk about. Uthman bin Affan had a very strong relationship with the Prophet ﷺ. As we can see, he was his son-in-law. But there's one interesting incident I want to narrate, which I found beautiful when I was reading, and I just want to share it with the brothers and sisters. Aisha narrates that one time, Rasulullah ﷺ in his marad, in that when he was passing away, Rasulullah ﷺ in his final passing away, when he became sick, he said, وَدِدْتُ أَنَّ عِنْدِي بَعْضَ أَصْحَابِي. He said, I wish I had my friend with me right now. I wish I had my friend with me right now. Who's saying this? Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and these are the moments he's passing away. So he says, وَدِدْتُ أَنَّ عِنْدِي بَعْضِ أَصْحَابِي. I wish I had my boy with me right now. بَعْضَ أَصْحَابِي. I wish I had my boy with me right now. So they said, أَلَا نَدْعُ أَبُو بَكَرْ. أَلَا نَدْعُ لَكَ أَبَا بَكَرْ. You want us to call Abu Bakr? فَسَكَتَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. Rasulullah just stayed quiet. قُلْنَا عُمَرْ فَسَكَتَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. قُلْنَا عَلِي فَسَكَتَ. Should we call Ali? Should we call Umar? فَسَكَتَ. Each time Rasulullah, he doesn't say no, he just stays quiet. قُلْنَا عُثْمَانْ قَالَ نَعَمْ Naam. فأرسل إلى عمر فأرسل إلى عثمان, they called Uthman, فجعل النبي يكلمه ووجهه يتغير. He started to talk to Uthman and his face started to change. He was happy and he had a special relationship. Uthman had some qualities which the Rasul ﷺ, in one hadith, the Rasul ﷺ, he says that to Ruqayya one time, and this was obviously when she was living, that Rasul ﷺ came to visit his daughter Ruqayya, and when Uthman wasn't there. Uthman wasn't there. So she was combing the hair of her father. She was combing the Blessed Prophet ﷺ's hair. And so the Prophet ﷺ said to her, you know, how's your husband Uthman? Kayfa wajadta Uthman? What do you think about him? How is he? Man, if you're a son-in-law and the Prophet's asking about you, you better be on top of your game. So Rasulullah ﷺ says to Ruqayya, how's Uthman? Tell me about him. So she says good things about him. And then the Rasul ﷺ says some amazing words. Rasulullah ﷺ says about him, Akrimihi. Honor Uthman. Honor him. Honor him. فَإِنَّهُ مَنْ أَشْبَعَ أَصْحَابِي بِي خُلُقًا. He is the Sahabi that resembles my character the most. His character resembles my character the most. Can you imagine Rasulullah ﷺ saying that about someone? You know, we get happy when we get a degree from some school. That the school says, we certify this individual. He's passed. This man graduated from the madrasa of the Nabi. And not only that, he got a certificate saying his character was the most resembling character to the Blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Can you imagine what this man was like? Uthman bin Affan. When Allah says about the Prophet, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, and you are on a very amazing, noble character. One of the attributes that Rasulullah ﷺ was known for, it said that ashaddu hayayan, he had more haya, modesty. He had more modesty than a young girl who's not married yet. That's the words that they used. Because at that time, it was, you know, there was a lot of... So the Rasul ﷺ, when he speaks about Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, he says, أَسْتَقُهُمْ حَيَاءً Uthman. That in my entire ummah, the one who has the most haya, this quality of modesty and shame, is Uthman. And one time, the Rasul ﷺ was sitting, and there's a well that they're sitting around. And the Rasul ﷺ, he was sitting sitting down, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu knocked at the door, and the Prophet ﷺ was just, you know, stretched out like this. And the hadith says that his legs were uncovered. So meaning his legs weren't truly uncovered, but his lower portion, like I'm sitting here, was up like this. So Abu Bakr knocked at the door. Abu Bakr knocked at the door. So they said, Ya Rasulullah, it's Abu Bakr. Let him in. Rasulullah ﷺ said, let him in. It's okay. And Rasulullah ﷺ didn't move. A few moments later, Umar bin Khattab, always, if Abu Bakr is coming, Umar bin Khattab is coming. You're not going to be with the Prophet ﷺ without me. So Umar bin Khattab comes, he knocks at the door, and they say, Ya Rasulullah, Umar bin Khattab, he would like to come in. Rasulullah ﷺ says, let him in. Rasulullah ﷺ is just sitting there, same way. A few moments later, someone else knocks at the door, Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala an. And they say, Ya Rasulullah, Uthman is there. Rasulullah ﷺ gets up, covers himself up, he sits straight, he says, let him in. Let him in. They say, Ya Rasulullah, Abu Bakr came in, you didn't move. Umar came in, you didn't move. Uthman came in and you became so shy around him. He said, why shall I not be shy around the person who even the angels are shy around? Who the angels are shy around. That was his level of haya. He was amazing character. Even in the house, no one is around. They say he would barely take off his clothes to wash them without putting something else on to cover himself. With no one else in the house. The day he died and was assassinated, and we'll talk in detail, Uthman bin Affan had never worn a sherwal ever. He never wore pants. They used to wear a izar that they just wrap around. That was their style. But the day of his assassination, Uthman bin Affan, he did something interesting. He called his wife Naila. He said, bring me a shirwar. I don't know what these rebels are going to do with me, but whatever they do, I don't want my awra. I don't want my awra to be exposed. So that was the only day in his life he ever wore pants. But look at his concern. They're about to attack him, but his concern is that his awra is never shown. This was some of his character. The other thing that Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu was known for was his humility. His humility. And what I found so amazing about this was he had so much money. He had so much money. When the battle of Tabuk came, we all know this story, but we can't mention Uthman without mentioning this story. When the battle of Tabuk came, it was a hard battle. They were going far against the Romans. Rasulullah ﷺ told everyone, we need as much donations as we can. We need as much give everything you can. Uthman right away, 1,000 camels fully loaded on me. That means 1,000 soldiers can now go. So then Rasulullah ﷺ says, we need more. Uthman says, 1,000 camels on me, Ya Rasul. This amount is not a small amount. In a few more times, after that, after 3 or 4 times that Uthman says, 1,000 camels more on me, Ya Rasulullah. Rasulullah ﷺ says, Ma ala al-Uthman ba'd al-yawm. Uthman can't do anything wrong after today. There's nothing that can affect him anymore. Brothers, what this tells us is sometimes you can make a sacrifice, and that sacrifice will be enough for the rest of your life. You don't know. We don't have the Prophet to tell us. But perhaps an individual made a sacrifice, such a sacrifice that if Allah just accepts it, there is no more worry. And you don't know which deed that is. You don't know which small deed or which big deed it is. Rasulullah ﷺ said, Ma ala al-Uthman ba'd al-yawm. Uthman is free. He's done. Accounts closed. Done. He bought his Jannah. And in fact, he actually did buy his Jannah. Once there was a bi'ru Ruma. There was a well. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. There was a very sweet well in Medina. Very good water. It's not bottled water. This is fresh well water. It's fresh water. But the person who owned it, he used to sell 1 cup for a mud. Meaning like a handful of dates for 1 cup. Rasulullah ﷺ, Muslims, we need water. For everything. Rasulullah ﷺ said, who's going to buy this well? Who's going to buy this well? Uthman comes back the next salah with that well. Ya Rasulullah, the well is ours now. Give it to the Muslimin, it's ours now. When the masjid was getting too small, people were coming in. Now it's time. Rasulullah ﷺ makes an announcement. It's time to expand the masjid. We need to buy that land. We need to buy that land. And he says, I guarantee for the one who buys that land, a house in Jannah. Uthman writes the check right away. Ya Rasulullah, I want that. That's mine. And remember this. I want you to remember, as we go through the life of Uthman, remember these 2 things. The well that he bought for the Muslimin and gave to Rasulullah ﷺ, and also what? The land that he bought to extend the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. Uthman became the Amir al-Mu'mineen. He became the Khalifa of the Rasul ﷺ. But in spite of all this, he was known for his humility. One person says, Hassan Basri, he narrates, Ra'aytu Uthman, he narrates from someone else, Ra'aytu Uthman yaqilu fil masjid. Uthman is Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he would take his afternoon siesta right in the masjid. Lay down. This is the leader of the country. And don't be fooled. At this time, the Muslim Ummah has expanded from the Maghrib all the way to the east. the Muslim Ummah has spread. But this is Amir al-Mu'mineen of the entire Muslim Ummah. He's sleeping, and in subhanAllah, the narration says that I saw his pillow, labina aw labinatain, one rock or two rocks. That was his pillow. Uthman with all of this money, yes, a rock. Uthman with all of this money dressed very casually. He was very, but you know what? They say that there was a few times he used to dress up. There was a few times he used to dress up. It says here, subhanallah, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Muhammad bin Rabi'a bin Harith, he narrates that kana ashab Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam yuwassi'una ala nisa'ihim fil libas. See, the Sahaba, they were, modest in everything. But they were very loose when it came to their wife and clothes. They would buy you want to wear something, Bismillah. You want this dress today, Bismillah. You want these clothes today, Bismillah. Yuwassi'una fil libas ala nisa'ihim. Sisters, don't forget this. Don't forget this. So Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala an, he had a very, very nice set of clothes. And one day he came out for salah. And he was looking, top notch. So someone asked him, Ya Uthman, what's up with this? And it was something worth 200 dirham. 200 dirham. So he said, Hada li na'ila. Kasawtuha iyaha. Wa ana albasuhu asirruha bihi. Beautiful words. He said, you see what I'm wearing? This is for my wife Na'ila. She wanted me to wear it, so I'm making her happy by wearing this. Look at, when it came to their own needs, simple. I don't need it. But for his family, Brother Mamadou, you listening? Are we listening, brothers? Uthman bin Affan, he comes in with what? Beautiful clothes. I said, brother, what are you doing? Why? We know you to be so simple. This is for my wife. I'm doing this to make her happy. Beautiful quality. Look at the balance of the Sahaba. Look at that balance. For himself, nothing. So if you see me wearing something, you know why. Don't blame me. Inshallah, we all act upon this sunnah, inshallah, of the Sahaba. Yusuf, soon, inshallah, bro. Bismillah. Taib. Uthman bin Affan, radiallahu ta'ala, as I said, had a different character. Uthman bin Affan had a different character. He wasn't there for the battle of Uhud, as we just, the battle of Badr. And we know the battle of Uhud was a very tough battle. We know the situation. The Muslims were on the top in the beginning, and then from the backside, Khalid bin Walid comes, and everyone is confused. Rumors spread when Mus'ab bin Umair is killed. Rumors spread that the Prophet ﷺ has been killed. Muslims start to flee. Some flee all the way back to Medina. Some are fighting in the thick. Some run up the mountain. Uthman bin Affan was one of those who fled back to Medina. He ran all the way back to Medina. Remember this point. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about those who ran away in Medina, Afallahu anhum. Allah has forgiven what they have done. Allah has forgiven what they have done. But the situation was such that everyone was confused. No one knew what was going on. Uthman fled. He ran all the way back to Medina. Uthman bin Affan carried a special place with the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And after the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam passed away, Uthman carried the role of treasurer for most of the Sahaba, for Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. Last week we studied a very beautiful hadith in which Umar bin Khattab asked Hudhayfa a question. That when the fitna comes, what's stopping the fitna? And Hudhayfa said there's a bab, there's a door stopping the fitna. Remember this. So Umar bin Khattab says, is that door going to be broken or opened? So Hudhayfa told him the door is going to be broken. So Umar bin Khattab, he said, if that's the case, the door will never be locked up again after that. Umar bin Khattab knew he was the door to stopping the fitna. Umar bin Khattab had such a character, he was so strong in his ways that canceled out a lot of the fitna. He canceled out a lot of the fitna. He had such a personality. Uthman bin Affan's character was completely different. Uthman was not as strong as Umar. He was weaker than Umar. And the Muslims had spread very far now. The Muslim empire had spread very far now. And there's all different types of people inside the Ummah. All the Sahaba themselves, it's not the same people that were there at the time of Umar. You have a different class of people. Some people just accepted Islam as they were conquered. Some people have a deep hatred for Islam. This is what's there at the time of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, when he becomes Khalifa of the Muslimin. As Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an became Khalifa, Uthman radiallahu ta'ala put Muawiyah, another Sahabi, in charge of the Levant, Sham. And Uthman is related to Muawiyah. But Umar bin Khattab had already placed Muawiyah as the governor of that area. So now, throughout the whole empire of the Muslims, different firq, different groups start saying things about Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an. And they started to raise objections about Uthman and his character and who he was. And their only intention was to create dissension amongst the Muslimin. That was their only intention, is to create dissension amongst the Muslimin. So they said things, for example, like what happened was in the year, the 31st year of Hijrah, Uthman bin Affan is getting very old now. Uthman bin Affan is getting very old now. And from Kufa, from Basra, from Misr, Egypt, from all over, complaints are coming to the people of Medina. So in the month of Shawwal, Uthman bin Affan, he calls all the people of Medina. And all of the Jalil Sahaba, all of the great Sahaba are still in Medina. And Uthman right now is around 80 years old. Uthman is around 80 years old. Maybe 70, 79 years old. And Uthman calls all of the Sahaba and he says, these are the things being said. So these groups were saying things like, Uthman bin Affan, his governors are crooked. And they're saying Uthman bin Affan, he's putting his own relatives in charge. Uthman bin Affan, he's not distributing the money justly. They're raising all of these objections. So Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, he calls all of the Jalil Sahaba, they gather together and he says to them, what shall I do? All of these things are being said. Now, let me remind us one thing. Last week we talked about a very important hadith. When Rasulullah ﷺ was on Mount Uhud. And that Mount Uhud, he was accompanied by Abu Bakr, Uthman, Umar, radiallahu ta'ala, and that's it. And the mountain began to shake. And Rasulullah ﷺ stepped on the mountain and said, Uthbuti, Uhud, stop shaking. You have a prophet, a Siddiq, and 2 martyrs. Umar bin Khattab has been assassinated. Uthman knows. The Prophet has told him many times. And one explicit time, the Rasul said to Uthman, Uthman, when Allah gives you a shirt, don't take it off. And Uthman knew that the Prophet was talking about Khilafah. That these people are going to come to you to take off that Khilafah. Don't take it off. So Uthman knows what the Rasul had already told him. But Uthman did not want to spill any Muslim blood while he was in charge. So Uthman radiallahu anh, he calls all the Sahaba in Medina. And he says, what should we do? So they said, well, why don't you send out some Sahaba to these different places to find out the reality, what's going on there. So he sends out Abdullah bin Abbas, he sends out Abdullah bin Umar, Sa'id bin Abi Waqas, he sends out great Sahaba. And they all come back and say everything is fine in those places. Except one governor in Egypt. The person he sent there, they lodged so many complaints against the governor. So many complaints, they didn't let the messenger himself go back. They kept him, you're not going back. And Uthman had to send someone else down to find out the news. So then in the following Hajj, the same year that Hajj, Uthman calls all of the governors. all of the governors of his empire. And he says, everyone come, I have to sort out everything. So everyone shows up. All of the Ummal, all of those governors under Uthman radiallahu, they all come to this meeting because it's of utmost importance. And Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, he says, what is all of this I'm hearing? Tell me everything. What is going on? I want to know the reality of everything. So the Ummal, they said, no, these are all rumors, this and that. Didn't you send people to go check out what was going on? Didn't you send? And Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu took their word for it, and he sent them back. He sent them back. Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he stood up in that gathering in Medina, and he said some words that, Ya ashabi Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that, oh Sahaba, grab onto this situation before something happens. Muawiyah was very wise man, very wise man. So he's telling them, fix this situation, something's going to happen. So 1 year passes. 1 year passes. And in the year of Shawwal, in the month of Shawwal, the 35th year of Hijrah, 35th year of Hijrah, different groups from Egypt, Kufa, Basra, different groups from all over, they all make this plan to meet up for Hajj. And they all leave. That was their intention now, to go and address Uthman directly, radiallahu ta'ala an. What happened was, now Shawwal is the time for people to leave for Hajj. Many of the great Sahaba had left for Hajj. Abdullah bin Abbas, he left for Hajj. Uthman sent him. And he's going to send him soon. So now these rebels all get together, all of these people, and they come to Medina. They come to Medina and they come straight for the house of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, and they surround the house, muhasara. They surround the house of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an. And now this is the Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is the Khalifa. The entire Medina is seeing what's going on. And they see these people surrounding the house of Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala an. So a little while before that, on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, Yawm al-Arafah, Uthman bin Affan had already sent Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu an, with a letter to read to all the Muslimin. Now mind you, by the 18th of Dhul Hijjah, Uthman is going to be murdered. So Uthman is surrounded by these rebels. And these rebels are bringing all these complaints about Uthman. So the first thing the rebels do, they stop all water from coming in. They stop all water from coming into his house. Uthman is 80 years old at this time. He's in the house with Naila. And he says to them, then after that, they stop him from what? Coming to the masjid. You can't lead the salah anymore. You are not ahl to lead the salah. You can't come to the masjid. So Uthman, he goes into his courtyard, and they've surrounded the house. He comes into the courtyard, and he speaks to them. And he says, was I not the one that bought the well for the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? So all the Muslims could drink that water? And here you today don't let me drink from this water? Was I not the one that bought the extension for the masjid? And you won't let me even walk into the masjid? Have I killed anyone that I should be killed? Have I committed fornication that I should be killed? Have I left my deen so that I should be killed? On what basis do... And he's speaking to them. He's speaking to them. Many of the rebels turn around and leave. So now, Hassan bin Ali, Hussein bin Ali, they're there. They're all there. But Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha had went for Hajj. Many of the great Sahaba, the Kibar Sahaba, had went for Hajj. So Uthman bin Affan, he tells all the Sahaba, no one do anything. And they're saying, subhanAllah, you have to imagine the situation that these great Sahaba are there who want to defend the Amir al-Mu'mineen. But the Amir al-Mu'mineen himself is saying, no, don't do anything. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. So as the Hajj is ending now, the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anh is in Arafat. He reads this beautiful letter. And the reason he also read that letter was to get help from Mecca. The people of Mecca come and help this situation that has gone out of hand. And Uthman bin Affan is talking to these rebels that what did I do wrong? So some of the things they said, well, you put your relatives in charge. He said, didn't the Rasul ﷺ put Ali radiallahu anhu in charge? Don't I have an example in Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Where is it wrong for me to do this? And this and that, all of the different objections they had, he was clarifying those. But they didn't want to hear anything. So on the 18th of Dhul Hijjah, Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala an is sitting in his house. They've stopped all water from coming in. They've stopped all people from coming in. In fact, al-Mu'mineen, one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, she was sitting on her camel and she just was going straight to the house of Uthman. So they hit her camel, her mule in the face, and they turn it around and they cut one of the things that she's holding it with, and the camel runs off and she almost falls off. But they said no water for him. He can't drink any water. So Uthman bin Affan is in the house, and Uthman, what would we be doing in this situation? Uthman is sitting in front of the Quran, reciting the Quran. Uthman had a special relationship with the Quran. There are Sahih narrations that Uthman is one of the Sahaba who used to recite the whole Quran in one rak'ah. Strong narrations. He had a special connection. He was one of the only Sahaba who had memorized the entire Quran at the time of the death of the Rasul ﷺ. He was Katibul Wahi. He was the scribe of the Rasul ﷺ. When revelation would come, he would call, bring Uthman, so he can write down the revelation. So Uthman is reading the Quran. The rebels, they begin to get anxious now that how long can we stay in this situation before the rest of the Muslims begin to fight against us. So they begin to burn the door down of the front of the complex, and they start a fire from there. Hassan and Hussein radiallahu ta'ala an, the sons of Ali radiallahu an, they're inside, and from inside they're fighting them away, but it's only a few of them. They can't do anything. Some of the Sahaba, some of them are killed, some are injured, some of them run away, and they come inside. And when they come into the house, some of them come from above, some come from the front. And when they come in, one of them speaks to Uthman, Ya Uthman, take off the Khilafat, you're not Khalifa anymore. And he speaks words to him, beautiful words. And he stops, and that man turns around and leaves. Then the next man comes to Uthman, Ya Uthman, and now they're there with their swords ready to take his life. And Uthman says some words to him. Am I not the Sahabi of Rasulullah? Am I not Dhun Nurayn? Am I not? And he too walks away. Then finally one of them, the most wretched of them all, comes and he goes to kill Uthman. And Na'ilah, subhanallah, Na'ilah, his wife, what does she do? She goes to protect Uthman, and she loses all of her fingers. She loses all of her fingers. So they hit him one time, and he's 80 years old by now, Uthman. He's 80 years old by now, Uthman. And the next time they come, they finish him off, and they didn't let the Sahaba come to even take his body for some time. And when they finally let the Sahaba come and take the body of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, they said, he's not amongst the Muslimin, he can't be buried in Jannatul Baqi. Jannatul Baqi is the graveyard of the Prophet ﷺ. A person buried there is inshallah guaranteed Jannah. They said he can't be buried in Jannatul Baqi. So they made him be buried far away from the Jannatul Baqi. But amazingly, subhanallah, Jannatul Baqi had to keep getting bigger and bigger. Right now, Uthman bin Affan's grave is right in Jannatul Baqi. They wanted him outside, he's still inside today. Because they had to keep expanding, and now his grave is inside of Jannatul Baqi. This is Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala an. This was the Sahaba who Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the one who resembles me the most in my character is Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala an. This is the Sahabi who was known for his modesty. This was Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala an. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us an appreciation for these great companions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a familiarity with them so that we can find solace and comfort in following their ways that they have given us, inshaAllah ta'ala. Inshallah, we'll stop here for Salatul Isha. Inshallah ta'ala. Are there any questions? Of course, subhanallah, 1 hour to the life of Dhun Nurayn, mahal, mustahil, as they say, right? Impossible. تركنا كثير. ولكن this is just a bit of the life of Uthman bin Affan radiyallahu ta'ala an. Any questions regarding Uthman bin Affan? Yes? Yes, the 18th of Dhul Hijjah, year 35 of Hijrah. No, there was a group of people that had come in to assassinate him. And the first person who goes up to him is going to kill him, and he says some words to him, but he is so hit by the words replied by Uthman that he just leaves. So they're all in the house at one time. And then finally, one person just has enough, and he ends up and kills Uthman radiallahu ta'ala. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Wallahi, Uthman, the life of Uthman is a beautiful life, beautiful example for us in his life and in his character. And if we can take just a few lessons from Uthman, we should look at his generosity with his wealth and how wealthy he was, but his humility with his wealth. His humility with his wealth. His wealth never affected him to feel he was anything. And in fact, many times he gave up all of his wealth for the sake of the Prophet ﷺ and the sake, and subhanAllah, the other lesson we learned from his life is perhaps there can be one deed you do, brothers and sisters. There could be one deed you do with so much ikhlas that that one deed becomes the source of your complete success in the hereafter. That was the deed Uthman did also. Yes, Shaykh Talib. Yes. So what we can understand is there was an individual that arrived in Kufa and Basra, and eventually he was kicked out, and eventually he went to Egypt. His name was Abdullah bin Sabah. He was a Jew. He was a Jew who pretended to be Muslim, and he started to create such different sayings about different Sahaba and about Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, and his intention was to bring discord in the ranks of the Muslimin and bring fighting amongst them. Well, he was kicked out of Basra, he was kicked out of Kufa, and finally he found a little bit of support in Egypt and Misr, and the people from there were a few that supported him. He was the start of all of this, and he was the one who had organized that in Shawwal of 35, these groups from Basra, Kufa, and Egypt are going to all come together on the pretext of Hajj, but in reality they were going to Medina to assassinate Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala an. And Uthman had been foretold by the Prophet ﷺ. He knew. But Uthman, he knew that he could not give up the Khilafat. And these people, now the main thing you have to understand was one of the primary causes to this was the influence in the collective wealth of the entire Muslimin. Now there was so much money coming in. Now politics start to come into the picture. Before this, there was no politics. Before this, there was no worry. But now as the money started to come in and the empire started to spread, this is when these things came. And Abdullah bin Sabah, he was the primary one that started these different types of fitna.
There are some narrations that Uthman bin Affan, the day he was killed, he was fasting.
Naam. Yes.
Before he woke up for Fajr.
Subhanallah.
Before he woke up for Fajr,
We shared that before.
in his dream.
Yes.
And the Prophet in his dream, he said, Ya Uthman, in shi'ta anjaynaka bi'idhnin min Allah, wa in
Subhanallah.
shi'ta aftarta al-yawma indana.
Naam.
And Uthman replied, Bal aftar indakum ya Rasulullah. He
Naam.
said, if you want, the Prophet said in Uthman's dream, he said, if you want, we will save you with the
Help of Allah. Naam.
But if you want, you can have iftar with us tonight.
And he chose iftar.
Uthman said, no, I will have iftar in
Allahu Akbar.
And he was killed right after Fajr.
No, no.
Is this grave near Aisha?
I'm not sure exact place. I have a map of where the graves are, but if you go there, you won't know. They make sure you don't know.
What is you referenced a couple of times, what is the year of field?
A fil, Ami fil, the year of the elephant. That was when Abraha had sent the elephants to destroy Mecca. And that was a major date that they used to determine
And is that the one where
Tayran Ababil. Yes.
okay, Babil was
Yes, exactly. طيب, inshallah, if we can call the adhan, inshallah. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
One of the brothers at Medina told me
have a map of it. I can't remember exactly. Someone call the adhan, inshallah. Katak.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.